Hello and welcome to Telegraph Studio and Business Reporter's Transforming Tax campaign, hosted by the Telegraph Online. I'm Alistair Greener. Are we leaving too much money in the government's coffers instead of asking for a tax refund and reinvesting it? If your company is running innovative projects that seek to achieve a scientific or technological advance to improve existing processes, products, materials, devices or services, then probably you haven't asked for tens of thousands of pounds back, even though you may be eligible. So how can you benefit from this government tax incentive, which was introduced to support innovation, research and development? Well, this is what we're going to discuss today with Jeremy Tier from Government, Grant and Tax Consultants. Good morning.
Morning.
So what exactly is innovation and research and development in this context?
Those definitions are quite important. The truth is that innovation and R&D are generally linked together. The reality for the scheme we're going to talk about really is it's more about compliant activity that's acceptable to the legislation, and that's about technological advances and in science and technology, or the search for a technological advance in science and technology.
Whenever you talk about science and technology, though, my imagination immediately goes to laboratories with scientists walking around in white lab coats and things. Is that what we're talking about?
No, I'm afraid not. That's the problem. That's what most people think. We've done claims across a whole range of different activities, everything from the balloony stick you walk out of McDonald's with to a horse's saddle. I mean, the horse's saddle is a really good example of a situation which saddles were invented in medieval times. So why would there be R&D? The truth is what they were trying to do was extend the stride path of a horse such that it would go 30 yards quicker over a mile, which is about winning the Derby.
So put this into some form of perspective for me. How many companies are we talking about that are actually taking advantage of this?
48,000 since the scheme started 17 years ago. Of the 48,000, there's been 141,000 claims, which suggests that in fact companies who get into the scheme continue to claim. The legislation is quite clear. As you're a limited company, you have a potential to claim. That's 3.5 million companies who could potentially have a claim. The reality is that obviously assessing whether they're carrying out effective research and development is a key part of that process, and that's part of what the technology development is required to do.
So it obviously makes sense, it works, so why only 48,000?
The problem is that there's a lot of misconception about whether or not, first of all, the issue of what is R&D, secondly, the question about marketing and information about how it works, and people actually being aware the scheme even exists.
So if they grasp that it exists, like the 48,000 do have, what sort of amounts of money are we talking about that they can take advantage of?
If they're a small business, the average claim is in excess of £50,000, and if they're a large one, as much as £450,000.
Wow, I mean, that's not an insubstantial amount of money. So obviously more organisations need to take advantage of it, but whose job is it to educate them to make sure they do understand what they're entitled to?
Initially the government, obviously, because it's their scheme. The HMRC are expected to try and market the scheme as well. And I suppose to a certain extent, because it's through the tax process, the accounting profession. But it's quite difficult for them because, of course, this is about technology. It's not about tax. It just happens to be the tax scheme that's being used to make payments out of the system. The problem for an accounting practice is they'll understand the tax, but they won't understand the technology necessarily.
Let's talk about you now, about government grants and tax consultants. Where do you fit into this whole process?
Well, that's where we fit in fact. We are technologists. That's our background. That's our circumstances. We concentrate our effort on defining what is the compliant activity that is innovation and R&D. Our job is to try and find that answer. Once that's found, claiming of the tax becomes much more straightforward.
So it's a given that this is a great thing, it's something we should all be taking advantage of, but in real terms, how long do you think it will be before organisations actually do make themselves aware of it and take advantage of it?
That's a really difficult question to answer. To a certain extent, the government obviously needs to invest more money in education and basically getting the message out there. Organisations like ourselves are doing that all the time. But in truth, the government's about to spend a great deal more money in this area. They are quite committed they've committed to £23 billion in terms of investment in innovation over the next 5 years. Let's hope that in that process they will recognise the need for marketing of the scheme, and obviously then companies can benefit substantially more than they have to date.
Well, it's been fascinating finding out more about something that, like many organisations, we probably weren't even aware of. Thank you very much indeed for making it that little bit more clear. Jeremy Tier from Government Grant and Tax Consultants, thank you very much.
Thank you.